Today I'm going to teach you how I make Pot Cheesecake Bites in 4 different flavors. Classic traditional cheesecake bites, Oreo cheesecake bites, salted caramel cheesecake bites, peanut butter cup cheesecake bites. Now if you love dessert recipes and you love using your Instapot, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss anything, and let's make some awesome. We're going to start with the base cheesecake batter, and then we're going to use this batter to create the other flavors of these mini cheesecake bites. Start by adding the softened cream cheese to your mixer. Now you want to beat this until it is perfectly smooth and there are no cream cheese chunks. So if you need to scrape the sides or scrape the bottom and then beat a little bit more, make sure that you do that, because once you add the other ingredients, it gets a lot harder to get those chunks out and the batter becomes a lot more sensitive. Add the sugar and the vanilla. While your mixer's on low, now we're going to add our eggs. So this is where it gets super sensitive, because eggs will help hold air in your batter, which we don't want. So we want to add the eggs and mix them, but barely incorporate them. Now this recipe will fit 2 of these 3x3 silicone molds. Now these fit in the 8-quart Instapot, so you'll get 18 cheesecake bites out of 1 recipe. Now we're going to divide this recipe in half. We're going to keep half as the classic cheesecake, and we're going to use the other half for another flavor. To continue with the classic cheesecake bites, we start with graham cracker crumbs, some sugar, and some melted butter, and mix that together. Now lightly pack some of the crust into a medium cookie scoop and squeeze it into the molds. Then you can use the back of the cookie scoop because it fits perfectly, and press down into the molds lightly. Now you can bake your crust, but because this is such a small amount, these bites are so small, I don't usually bother. Then using a large cookie scoop that I use for cupcake size, you want to squeeze that into each container. Give the mold a little shake to get all the air bubbles out. Now place a paper towel on top of your mold and then cover it with foil. The paper towel is going to soak in any moisture that's coming from the steam while it's cooking, so you don't end with a puddle of water on top of your cheesecake bites. Now remember, we can cook 2 of these molds at one time, so I'm going to take the other half of that batter, and now we're going to make Oreo cheesecake bites. For this crust, we're going to start with Oreo crumbs and some butter, and stir. Just like before, we're going to take a scoop of the Oreo crumb crust, scoop it into our mold, and press it down into place. Now take our cheesecake batter and add some chopped Oreos and fold them in. You should get a little bit of speckling, but you don't want it to be too crummy versus chopped, or it'll go completely gray. If you don't have a large cookie scoop, you can always measure out the batter. I would add 3 tablespoons of batter. You don't want to add more than that, even if you have leftovers, because otherwise it will overflow when baking and make a mess. Cover it with paper towel and foil again. Now for our third Instapot cheesecake flavor, we're going to take my really popular salted caramel cheesecake and turn that into these mini cheesecake bites. And we're going to start by doing a shortbread cookie crumble crust. Ground up shortbread, melted butter, and stir it together. Now this medium cookie scoop is 1.5 tablespoons, so if you don't have a scoop, you can always measure it out. Now I have half of the batter again, and I'm going to add some of my homemade caramel sauce. I have a video here showing me making this caramel sauce, and it's also on my website, ashleemarie.com. You can always use a high quality store-bought caramel sauce, just make sure it's one of those thicker sauces and not a cheap ready one. Add the batter. Now don't shake too hard. You don't want to end up disrupting the crust, because again, it's not baked down there, it's just pressed into place. So just little jiggles until you don't see any more bubbles popping at the surface. And for our 4th and final flavor, we're doing peanut butter cup. So you can start with a Oreo or chocolate crust. I am using Nutter Butter cookie crumbs. So add your Nutter Butter crumbs and your butter and stir that together. You can also use a small spoon to press the crust into place. You just don't want to leave the crust loose. Now taking our cheesecake batter, I'm adding peanut butter to it and just folding that in, stirring that in until it's smooth. What you don't want to do at this point is beat it, because we already have the eggs in there. Then I have mini peanut butter cups that we're going to fold into the batter as well. This is going to be a little bit thicker because of the peanut butter, So just be a little bit more careful when you're filling the cup so you don't make too big of a mess. I spread this batter into place as needed with the back of a spoon. I double up my paper towels for this and it gets soaked. Next time I'm gonna try 3 layers. Add a cup of water into the pressure cooker. Now you want to stack your molds together and put them in a sling. Now you can use the sling it came with or you can buy a sling. I'll have a link down below. And I like to put my molds off by 45 degrees so those top mold cups aren't fitting down and squishing the bottom mold cups. So add the cheesecakes to the pressure pot, put the lid on, and we're going to pressure cook this for 4 minutes. Now it will take about 10 minutes to come up to pressure, so it will take about 14 minutes in total, and then you want to let it natural release for at least 10, and then you can quick release after that if there's any time left at all, which usually there's not. Open up your Instapot and pull your cheesecakes out. Now carefully peel off the foil and the very wet paper towels, and you'll notice there's no condensation on top because the paper towels are totally wet and they've soaked up all that moisture. We're going to make the sour cream topping for the classic cheesecake. Sour cream, sugar, vanilla, and stir it smooth. Add about 2 teaspoons of the topping to each of the warm cheesecakes. The residual heat of the cheesecake will set the topping slightly. Now let your cheesecakes cool on the counter until they're not super hot anymore, and put them in the fridge for at least 4 hours, but I like to do it overnight. Once the cheesecakes have set, it's time to take them out. Now a trick for you is to put them in the freezer for about 20 minutes. That just will overly harden them and help them come out easier because they are creamy and soft. They can be kind of messy straight out of the fridge. Another trick is to use a small angled spatula, and I run it around the rim of the silicone, and that will also help be able to pop those cheesecakes out easier. Now it's time for the toppings of each of the cheesecakes. Obviously, for the classic cheesecake, you can go with anything that you want or nothing at all. I like to add some canned cherry pie filling. For the mini Oreo cheesecakes, I like making Oreo whipped cream. This is just like normal whipped cream, but with Oreo crumbs. To make the Oreo whipped cream, start with the heavy whipping cream, add the powdered sugar and vanilla, and beat. Add 2 tablespoons of Oreo crumbs and stir it in. Then pipe the whipped cream on. Now for the caramel cheesecake, go ahead and add your homemade caramel sauce to the top. Now the more heated the caramel sauce is, the more runny it will be over the cheesecakes. So I like to heat it just enough that it's movable and spreadable, but not too much. And then you just want to add some of the fleur de sel on top of it. Just a light sprinkling, it's very strong. And finally, for the peanut butter cups, I'm going to add some chocolate ganache. To make the ganache, take some chopped chocolate, add some barely simmered heavy cream. You don't want it boiling or that will break the ganache. And then you want to let it sit for 5 minutes. Now what that 5 minutes does is the cream, that warm cream, permeates the chocolate and helps get it soft all the way through so that when you do start stirring, the chocolate is already melted and you won't have to deal with clumps. If you start stirring right away, the stirring will cool down the cream before it gets a chance to melt the chocolate completely, and then you'll have to microwave it some more, which can lead to broken ganache. Spoon enough of the ganache onto each of the cheesecake bites. I like to add enough that it starts to like drip over the edges. And then I top the cheesecakes with some mini peanut butter cups for the final touch. So now you can see just how easy it is to make Instapot Cheesecake Bites and to change up the flavor. The possibilities are endless. I would love to hear in the comments down below what your favorite cheesecake flavor is. And now I get to try everything. So excited. Now I top the traditional cheesecake with cherry pie filling, but of course you can use anything you want or you can leave it plain. The texture is perfect. Creamy and decadent and rich and everything a cheesecake should be. Now for the Oreo. Perfectly creamy, the texture is amazing, and I love the Oreo cream on top. Now for the salted caramel. The only negative to these little bites versus the big one is that there's no lip on the edge to hold that caramel in, so it tends to be really messy. So I would wait to add the caramel until right before serving it, or just leave them plain with the caramel on the side and let people add the caramel themselves. Oh, so soft. That caramel flavor just shines through. And now for the peanut butter cup. Now this one is going to be more dense because of the amount of peanut butter and the thicker batter that we created with it. If you want it to be on the creamier side, I would put in a little less peanut butter, but I love the rich flavor that all of that peanut butter gives it. So good, so decadent, just delicious. Now, whether you like to do full-size cheesecakes or you like to do cheesecake bites, the possibilities of flavors are endless. I would love to hear in the comment what your favorite flavor is, and head on over to the next video.